very warm welcome to our panel discussion of the new age from steel and exhaust to software and sustainability. I don't know what you think when you walk through the halls of CES. I think the word software-defined vehicle is really striking. And I was wondering why. Most of us, I think, have arrived here at Vegas by plane. So if software is so important, how many lines of code does an average plane usually have? Do you have a guess? Take a Boeing 777, a huge plane. It's 2.6 million lines of code. Now let's think about, not everybody of us is owning a Boeing 777, but most of us, according to statistics, own a vehicle. At least in the US, more than 90% of the households own one vehicle. 40% own two, but 90% own one vehicle. And if you buy a vehicle now, have a guess how many lines of code it will contain. It's 40 times the number of the Boeing 777. So there must be a meaning behind software, which I would like to discuss with our panelists today. And I'm super excited and very, very happy that we have a very experienced senior panel today. So I would like to welcome on stage Missy Stigall. She is the Senior Vice President Global Fab Operations at Wolfspeed. And by the way, she needs your help because she's low in her voice. So we have to be very quiet in order to understand her. So I think together we will make it. So I'm very happy that you're joining us, although you don't have really the voice to speak up. Thank you. And then I'm looking at Sanjeev Khurana. He is the General Manager of the Connectivity Services Group at Daimler Trucks North America. Then we take a look to Andrew Poliak. He is the CTO, Chief Technology Officer of Panasonic Automotive. Welcome on stage. Next, we have Bill Pinnell, Vice President and Head of Automotive Software Product Management from Qualcomm. And last but not least, and she hates me because she has the long distance walk, it's Mariela Minutolo. She's Executive Vice President from ITAS Bosch. So let's take a seat and let's start our discussion, which I believe I would like to start with you, Sanjeev. Daimler Trucks is the market leader in commercial vehicles in North America. So you are, with your products, ensuring that productivity is up for the end user. Now, when I think about the end user, this is usually not the EV enthusiast and not the consumer. But how do you guarantee that with the software, you can increase the productivity of your products?
Thank you, Elmar. Really happy to be here today. And as you rightly pointed out, we are in the B2B business. Our customers are fleet operators of our trucks. And if you look at the trends which are impacting our industry in terms of technology and what drives the need for software and services for us, it's quite clear. And some of the topics we're all familiar with, including autonomous in the future, certainly zero-emission vehicles, looking at the digitization of the logistics value chain, and finally the software-defined features that our customers are requesting and we want to deliver to our customers. In each of these four areas, there's a clear need for us to move beyond what we do today in terms of providing the truck and buses towards providing services solution, which are based on software. And if you look at, obviously, at some of the use cases, it's quite obvious, but autonomous requires not only a virtual driver, but also a way to connect to our customers without the driver, right? The other activities which happen in a truck, maintenance and service and management of loads and so forth. Similarly, for zero-emission vehicles, there's a clear need for us to be able to provide services to enable our customers to take full advantage of and be able to transition from diesel to zero emissions. E-services, certainly understanding batteries and managing the trucks. And in the past, some of these services were nice to have, and certainly in the future, especially with zero emissions, these are absolutely needed. And to optimize our customers' business, we need to go beyond what we traditionally think of uptime into these areas of software and services. And finally, as we will talk a little bit about as well, the need for being able to update our trucks over the air and provide new features. And certainly we see that not only improving our customers' uptime, but also giving us the opportunity to provide new services beyond the point of vehicle sales. So all of these trends are really impacting us, and what we certainly look at, a core principle is to make sure our customers have the highest uptime, efficiency, and safety. These principles applied now to services and software really mean that we need to take our game to the next level.
Yeah. So if we zoom into a kind of specific example that you would give and share with us where you say this is really a highlight for you personally in your context.
Yeah, I mean, if we think about how we, what we need to change, and in many ways it's about transformation. And if you look at the entire kind of stack, from the customer experience to the platforms that we are developing to the onboard architecture of our trucks, all of that has to change in the future. And the way we are looking at it, and we have certainly lots of opportunities and challenges with that. For example, how we sell subscriptions to our customers. Today we are well equipped to sell trucks and buses, provide parts and some basic services. But tomorrow we need to be able to provide a compelling platform where our customers can pick and choose different services. Similarly, we are changing the way we develop our digital products, and that's certainly something different and new for us. Traditionally, we think about product development in long cycle times. And as we look at our digital products, we have to adapt to the agile approach and look at ways to speed up our development. And that's really also a challenge for us and certainly an opportunity. And finally, when it comes to the architecture of our trucks, that's certainly a key area which is also evolving and sometimes maybe not fast enough, because to provide these features, for example, being able to add new safety solutions to our customers' trucks after they've purchased it, we need to be able to have the right architecture on the truck. And as you can well imagine, that's probably the longest cycle time. And as I like to say, in our world, the cycle time for developing a new app or changing something on the cloud is in a matter of days and weeks. But changing something on the truck is usually months and years. And that's really our fundamental challenge. How do we improve that speed to be able to offer these new services and solutions?
Thank you, Sanjeev. I would like to turn my next question to Mariella. So if you look at the relation between OEMs and suppliers, and I think this is a very stable situation if I look back, kind of symbiotic relation that is existing between OEMs and suppliers, meaning that usually OEMs design and build while the suppliers provide the components and the embedded software. And now we hear more and more that OEMs try to take a grip on the software, so they would like to expand their footprint. And I wonder, I mean, ETAS has been founded in '94. You are 100% subsidiary of the world's largest supplier, automotive supplier, Bosch. So how do you cope with this situation that you are facing these changes, and maybe what role is also ETAS playing in this context?
Yeah, so what we've done already years ago is starting the process of decoupling hardware and software. And I think I can relate to what Sanjeev was telling. The transformation is so fast that we need to also find new ways of collaboration in software beyond hardware. And we're very well set up for hardware collaboration, as you said, almost symbiotic. Everybody knows what to do. In software, there are a lot of claims, I would say, still. We're not there yet in saying we, as an industry, have found the solution to have it all and be successful in software. And for me, the main topic is really collaboration. And decoupling software and hardware is one step to really enable collaboration across the industry, to make sure that everybody can choose what they want to use, the functionality on the one side, and the hardware on the other side. And what we've announced also now is a new setup of Bosch Mobility, where we not only have the vertical different domains, which also have a different setup now since January, but also have horizontal solutions across the different domains. Because if you think about centralized ECUs and new architectures, that means that a lot of people within tiers and also OEMs have to collaborate. And across the industry to collaborate, because to do also embedded software, you need more than one player in reality. And doing that in a collaborative mode in the cloud is something that we need to enable across the industry, and that's where we as ETAS have our stake to really enable that. And I would say it's not only a technical issue, it's a cultural issue in the industry.
So you said you did the change in the organization, so how did you manage this cultural change?
Well, one is the reorganization on the one hand side. So let me make maybe one example. We have new functionality on software called vehicle motion management, which combines steering, braking, and powertrain. So 3 different divisions in the former time that had to collaborate together with ETAS as the 4th player. And to really enable that, that's really bringing the teams together and giving them a purpose, what they can do if they combine their forces. And now we've enabled to get the vehicles in a more stable and safe braking, steering, and powertrain together environment, and achieving even more than if just every one single development area would do that by themselves. And I think showing that this is possible, making these first steps in successful first examples, that is what that drives then that cultural change.
Very impressive. Thank you, Mariella. So Andrew, I mean, at Panasonic Auto, I can imagine that you feel the pressure from the consumer side also, and the expectation to be innovative. I think maybe also at a pace that is really dramatic. And we've just heard that some organizations, and maybe many organizations at OEMs, are not yet there. So still very functional, Tayloristic, grouped around hardware components, but not really in the mood of collaboration. So let's take a look under the hood, and I would really like to listen to what you can tell us, how we can overcome these hurdles and what you have done in order to manage these complexities.
Sure, thank you. I would hate to be the last person, which would be Bill in this case, because as you go through, you're like, oh, that was one of my points. Oh, that was one of my points. So Bill, you're going to be in trouble. So we're definitely at the beginning stages, even though in some people they would think they're well into software-defined vehicle, but realistically there's still a shift that needs to take place, and we're still in the early days of OEMs and Tier 1s moving to that shift, right? That moving from a hardware-first and hardware-focused manufacturing to software-driven innovation. And so I'll do the second part first, which is the why people are moving to this and OEMs are moving to that. And, part of it is to adapt quickly to the changing pace of consumer needs, right? Because you can't just launch something and expect 11 years later that will still be relevant without some way of embracing not just software, but even hardware upgradability. And I think Sanjeev mentioned another one, which is the idea of new business models related to software that could change, whether it's a subscription or whether it was new technology that you can download. thinking about a real example, Apple recently announced having Dolby Atmos streamed content from CarPlay. There aren't many cars that support Atmos at the moment, but because there wasn't really content. But there are platforms like Qualcomm's platform that can do a Dolby Atmos decode really well, that it won't be too hard to launch that feature even in an existing production vehicle if you start with a software-first mentality. So I think there will be upgrades that you can do with changing consumer demands, making sure that that system's fresh over the life cycle of the vehicle. There's a lot of reasons. So if you look at what are they doing about it or what they should do about it, I broke it down to about 4 points. So some have been covered. The decoupling of hardware from software, 100%. I agree thoroughly. And actually we have a demonstration of that decoupling, our virtual skip-gen platform that's actually integrating with the ETAS virtual stack as well. That's in the AWS booth. But that decoupling allows you to shift the development left, allows you to do a lot more development before hardware is available. So waiting for an A sample to start doing your development, and you mentioned the millions of lines of code that are in these systems, the integration effort, the development effort cannot wait until you have your first sample hardware, so you have to start decoupling it. The other one that it is that, so the decoupling of hardware and software, there's a talent gap. So if you listen to Dan Nicholson, he's been involved in this initiative that's called 40 by 30, and that's creating 40% of engineering graduates by 2030 that are women. So enabling and engaging new STEM opportunities. We're partnered with Katie Ledecky, the world champion Olympic swimmer, who's also doing STEM education, and we're doing STEM Forward as Panasonic. And I, as well as Qualcomm, Nicole Duggal is a SAE trustee, going through the SAE Foundation to support STEM education. So there's a lot. There's a few others. I don't want to take up all my time, but I can go the last two, or you can hit me up later. Thank you.
Yeah. So if I listen to you, I get the impression technology is there and it's ready. Am I right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's technologies and standards like VirtIO is an industry standard that allows you to do some of that decoupling of hardware from software. There's also, the other thing I didn't go into is this whole idea of using partnerships. There's no way to go it alone with the amount of code that's done. So technology partnerships, whether that's Google or Amazon, partnerships with your suppliers, and even as you mentioned earlier, yes, it's changing where OEMs are doing more software development, but I think that talent gap is going to be a real problem if they try to do all of it. So you see this vacillation of going from, a tier one's just a build-to-print partner, or they're doing all the software. And I think it's going to end somewhere in the middle where there'll be more build-to-platform enabling technologies. They'll be able to work with tech providers to do some of those upper layers, and then they'll be able to do a lot more software development that's really around user experience and new things to monetize or new things to give a great experience over the life of the vehicle.
Thank you. So, Missy, let's try how your voice is sounding. I would like to pick up the word sustainability that we have listed there, and I think there's no doubt that we will need EVs in order to make our world cleaner. But I think maybe many of us, also here in the audience, ask themselves, what should I do if I need to replace my car? Should I buy an ICE, an internal combustion engine, where I have a lot of experience with, I know what I get? Or should I go into the EV area where maybe charging, range anxiety are topics where I'm not 100% confident how this will really work out with me. So, and in particular, I think there's some fancy stuff that you're doing with, I think the consistency of the battery is also changing. So you have some very nice material that could help. I mean, how does this impact my decision? So I would like to get an answer for the audience here. What can Wolfspeed do in order to answer this question for us?
Okay, sounds worse than it is. It's a great question. So silicon carbide is a pivotal technology, and we at Wolfspeed believe that it is probably the most important change in automotive history. I realize my software friends here may beg to differ, but I'm going to explain why. If you compare this to silicon-based technologies, silicon carbide offers 3 benefits that silicon can't meet. So the first one is range, exactly what you said. Range anxiety truly does exist, and that tends to be the question that we get the most. What about range? So when you think about silicon carbide, it has a 50% higher power density, which gives longer driving distance. And so today, when you compare that to silicon, it's about a 10% greater range impact choosing a vehicle that has silicon carbide. Now, that's with today's technology. At Wolfspeed, we're working on the next generation, and you better believe that range is one of the things that we're really focused on in our next generation MOSFETs. The second area is also an area that you hit on, which is charging. So if you think about it from a consumer standpoint, it's very easy to pull into a gas station. You're in and out in 5 minutes. If you think about silicon carbide, it has 3 times charging today compared to what silicon does. And so you're able as a consumer to plug in your electric vehicle at night, 3 times the charge, and essentially wake up with a full tank of gas. I think this is really something important that we think about. But also, if you're thinking about family trips or running errands, what does that mean when you're driving around from an infrastructure standpoint? And so the very fact that silicon carbide, again, offers 3 times the charging speed, it's actually better than silicon in terms of electric vehicle. So you're able to pull in, get that charge, and be able to move on much faster. And then really the third benefit that I'll highlight is low cost of ownership. So silicon carbide really provides lower maintenance, and in turn that means lower system repair as well. And so it's just a lower total cost of ownership for overall consumers. So when you really add those 3 things together, what you get is a better product. It's a better product than an ICE, and it's a better product than an EV that's silicon-based. Now, if you also think about better product, we need to answer the sustainability impact, which means electric vehicles, silicon carbide, also make the planet greener, right? A little bit of history about Wolfspeed. I'm not sure how many of you know. They've been in the silicon carbide industry for 35 years. And so throughout that time, they were mostly known as Cree, an LED company. And when Greg Lowe came to the company a few years ago and understood what we had from a material standpoint, he said, I think you're sitting on a gold mine. Wolfspeed's vertically integrated. So in order to create silicon carbide, it's really just the combination of silicon and carbon, but you have to combine it and heat it to half the energy of the sun. Half the temperature of the sun. And so as you can imagine, you just can't go to your local hardware store or to your local tool vendors and buy a lot of those tools, right? But because we're also heating to those temperatures, we know that it's a pull on resources. It's a huge energy hog. It's also a huge pull on water. And so in 2020 and 2021, we underwent a study, and we really wanted to go understand what is the difference between energy saved in silicon carbide versus silicon invested. And so we worked with some key research experts and subject matter experts, and what we found on the 800-volt bus architecture, there were actually 13 times, so 13 to 1 in terms of energy saved. And so at the end of the day, if you're asking me, who's in the silicon carbide business, I would definitely tell you to go electric.
So it really sounds like superpowers that you have found, and yeah, I think this makes our decision easier. So we should be really in favor of the EVs, and we should take a look what's inside. So silicon carbide can make a difference. So Bill, I think when we listen to all the ones and knowing that you are not allowed to repeat anything what has been said before, it sounds to me that I think one word has not been spoken out, which is ecosystem. Because when I think about Qualcomm, for me, you always have been synonymous for mobility and connectivity. I think that's in your DNA. And when you are now changing the automotive industry, and I think you do with your solutions. How does the ecosystem play into this? And maybe also, does this help to reduce the complexity, or does it increase complexity? I would like to listen to your opinion.
Thank you for the question. So I think, Qualcomm has a very rich history in automotive on the telematics side. So we, we're over 20 years working in connectivity, and that obviously has moved through, third gen, fifth gen, fourth gen, fifth gen, LTE, etc. But when we came into infotainment in 2015, actually thanks to some people actually who might even be in this room, we had a modus operandi from mobile where we were used to working with, obviously Android, Google team, and also like Unix, BlackBerry. I did phones with them as well. So those were two pivotal things that brought us into infotainment. And the software complexity then was quite large. We were used to software complexity on mobile phones. And so when we started working in automotive, it was natural for us to go quite far up the stack to provide a lot of the solution, even though we were, a semico. So we weren't very traditional in the automotive sense. So, we've worked obviously in collaboration with the ecosystem, particularly big suppliers like, Google and Amazon more recently in terms of a more rich, complex software environment. But as the digital cockpit, part of what we call the Snapdragon digital chassis, as that's become more encompassing in terms of the ECUs that are used within the car, so the instrument cluster, the infotainment, up to 12 screens, etc., and now more recently, autonomous ADAS units as well. Now the complexity has really grown. So that's a step change from the infotainment for a couple of screens, maybe instrument cluster. So I think one of the things that we're seeing is the ecosystem becomes much more important because you can't rely on for instance, an embedded proprietary OS, environment. You can't rely on just Android. You can't rely on just Amazon or something. You need a pool of ecosystem providers there. So we think that cloud native is one of the key technologies coming in for software-defined vehicle. So people understand Linux, they understand containers. You can run containers on proprietary OSs, by the way, as well. But you need that wider development pool to solve the problem of software complexity. So when an OEM has a vision for doing, their environment for their fleet of vehicles, and there's people in the room from the OEMs who have created great ecosystems around their vehicles, but that also needs to work with multiple suppliers, as Mariella said earlier, and so did Andrew. So we're seeing things like software factory. So a software factory is where you have the OEM working hand in hand with multiple suppliers in a common software integration environment. So you've got agile development processes in there, so you've got that reducing your time to market, so you can do quick iterations of software, and then coupled with, now I'm going to repeat some of what Andrew's stole my thunder on, virtual platform. So no one said digital twin today yet, so I'm going to say it. So the virtual platform is, some people think it's a buzz, but if you can start to run your software workloads and develop your software workloads in the cloud and test them and do CI/CD and regression testing and optimization and then download it to your target hardware, that is a massive benefit in time to market and quality of software too. Because there's so much software, as you said, compared to a Boeing, 747 or 777, that you're going to have bugs. So you need to find as much of that as possible before SOP, but not just before SOP. We're talking now about keeping things fresh and up to date for the consumer. As you said, the driver, if it's a driver or autonomous passenger, right, they want to see the very latest. They're expecting that from the rest of their consumer electronic devices, and they want to see that in their car. And if I'm actually letting my car take over and do autonomous driving, I want to be entertained, and I want to see visualization. I want to see all the very latest, greatest technology. So I can do that if the OEM and their supply chain and ecosystem are working continually on software post-SOP. So I want the latest version of Linux or Android or whatever it is, and I want to make sure that I can get that on my car. Otherwise, I'm going to change vehicle.
So it's not only that the technology is there, but you say also the attitude in working and collaboration together in one environment in order to make this happen. This is also possible, and as you have said, there are examples out there. That's very promising. So I would like to take the opportunity to make a final round with our panelists. We have just started into the year 24, and maybe some of us have some wishes that should come true in 24. So if I go around, and I will start with you, Mariella, because you had the longest walk to your seat. If you had a wish for 24 that would facilitate your life and that would make the step towards SDVs closer, what would this be?
For me, it would be that we bring to life a lot of the things that we just mentioned. Because I think it's, like you said, technology is there. We need to find the ways of doing this in a collaborative way and also doing it as a good business. So that would be my wish.
Thank you, Mariella. So, Bill?
Okay, so I would like to see generative AI come into automotive software development, not just as a buzz on top, because everybody else is talking Gen AI. I'd like to see it permeate both the development cycle, so we get to use generative AI, LLMs in our development and testing and the whole development side, as well as permeating Gen AI on the target platform so that it permeates across the OS, the features, the voice assistant, the visualization, so it isn't just a buzz app on top that may be using something in the cloud. It's actually using Edge, it's using all the sensors, it's using everything that we have in the vehicle.
Thank you, Bill. Andrew?
So I really wish this panel would have been yesterday morning, because as a University of Washington graduate, I would have made a wish that we would be gone, we would have won the championship last night. But since that's already over, I guess I got to pick a different one. If I had one wish, now this is, I'm going to get punched, I think, by saying this, but a lot of the technology becomes quite easy and collaboration becomes quite easy. Where things are very difficult is around licensing and intellectual property, and a lot of the agreements you have to share things between partners, that as much of this integration and this work, and there may be a company sitting next to me that their whole lobby is filled with patents for a reason. I'd just like it to be a lot easier, because the amount of things we get in our way with a lot of the contractual pieces, and I know it's important, I just wish it was easy. So if I had one wish, you could make incredible technology come to life if you could remove a lot of the legal and collaboration roadblocks. Well, that would be one of my wishes.
Sanjeev?
Well, I must say, as a University of Michigan graduate, my wish already came true last night. So, but if I had to,
I'm a goldfish.
but if I had to, think about what would make, for me, our lives a lot easier. We are basically an IoT company running inside a traditional OEM with our platform, and we made a lot of progress in creating new software, digital products for our customers, and creating an end-to-end perspective for where we need to go with our services and solutions. Sometimes I'm jealous of the startups who can do this so fast and get in front of our customers and offer all kinds of bells and whistles. But then I remember we're also part of our truck company, where we really need to focus on how we improve our products and our trucks and buses in terms of the software, the features on there. So my wish is, again, back to the clock speed of embedded software development. And I know we've talked today about all that we can do to collaborate better, and I think that's really what I would like to work on this year as well.
Missy?
Well, since I'm in operations, I would say probably ship more product would be my biggest wish for the year, because I'm sure I have some customers in the crowd who'd like to hear that. But really, when you think about why we're here today and just really listening to all of you talk about software, again, it would be the adoption, the early adoption of silicon carbide. Because when you talk about software, when you talk about infotainment in automobiles, I mean, you have to have the power and the efficiency in order to enable it, right? And so I think it comes back to that early adoption. And then again, it comes back to collaboration and partnership to understand where are we going, and then how can silicon carbide help in that space.
So thank you very much. And if I may also have one wish, I would really wish that all your wishes come true. And there's maybe one or two questions that we could also pick from the audience. So there's a mic in the middle of the room. If somebody would like to ask a question to the panelists, there's an opportunity. If nobody wants to raise a question, we will give some minutes back. Do I see any arms? Any? Oh, it doesn't look like that. So then we give a present back. But I would like you to give a big hand and a big applause for our super panelists. I'm super happy for this session. Thank you.